Boxing Champs is a simple, top-down sports game that has more in common with Rock'em Sock'em Robots than Punch-Out! This is the console debut for developer Raz Games, a studio that, until this point, has exclusively developed mobile titles aimed primarily at a very young audience. The first thing you'll notice after booting it up is the unique art style. I gotta admit that this game just isn't great to look at. From the front, fighters look like South Park characters, and from above, the perspective just isn't quite right. None of the animation is hand-drawn, but rather made out of individual blocks that stick together like a marionette. There's nothing inherently wrong with this style of animation, but if you don't use it sparingly, it can make everything look a bit lifeless and honestly kind of cheap. Even the title screen is off-putting. What the hell happened with these faces? You've got your left and right jab, haymaker, and uppercut, each costing more stamina than the last, but also causing more damage. When you're playing a boxing game, there's one thing that you have to nail, and that's the way that punches sound. The dull thud of a jab hitting a gut, or the explosive crack of a devastating knockout punch needs to be there to punctuate the moment. That's what we're here for after all, strong punches. And I think we're about halfway there in Boxing Champs. I quite like the bassy sound of a haymaker or a jab in this game, but whenever you knock down an opponent with a heavy final swing, the sound just doesn't cut it. It's okay, I guess, but do you remember Super Punch-Out? That's what we're missing here. Granted, I still got great satisfaction out of taking out an opponent, but I know how big a difference a few adjustments to the audio could make, and it's a shame. Also, maybe go a different direction with the ref. He probably doesn't need to be on screen at all, and that VO leaves something to be desired.
8, 9, 10, knockout!
You'll start the campaign by creating your own fighter. I want to point out the very odd decision to not let players pick one of their already created characters to take into the campaign. But luckily the options are pretty limited, so recreating the same character twice wasn't that big a deal. There are a decent amount of hair and color options here, but strangely enough, you can't type in your own name. Instead, you have to pick from a list of pre-written nicknames. The very names, I might add, that you'll be fighting your way through in the campaign. This is a really strange decision, and I don't know why they would do it this way. They're also lacking options to change your face or your body type, aside from the way your abs look, I guess. And you can't make your fighter a woman. It's disappointing, but what can you expect from a game like this, right? The campaign structure is pretty straightforward. You start at the bottom of a list of fighters and fight your way up the ranks in order to unlock XP, which you can dump into different characteristics, and ultimately become number 1. At any given moment, you have boxers above or below you in the rankings that you can challenge to a fight. And believe it or not, Boxing Champs is surprisingly well balanced in this regard. I could always try to leap up in the rankings by going after the hardest opponent available, but I was appropriately underleveled, so it was difficult, but definitely doable with some skill and a little luck. Alternatively, you can challenge fighters closer to your rank to level grind and improve those stats. It's up to you.
2, 3, 4!
To be honest, I had a really great time tearing my way through the rankings. Like I said earlier, this game has an arcadey, rock'em sock'em feel to it that embraces throwing caution to the wind and just beating the snot out of one another with a hurricane of punches. You have a stamina meter, of course, and it keeps you in check for the most part, but by the end your speed is so high and your punches so damaging that I found no reason to ever let up, and I had very little issues taking down the final contenders that way. So I guess by the end the game isn't all that balanced.
1, 2!
Boxing Champs offers local multiplayer, which lets you each pick a fighter and go at it in a one-on-one match. It's a mess. Nobody's gonna manage their stamina or use any semblance of strategy in a game like this. But damn if it isn't a whole lot of stupid, nonsensical fun to just wallop each other. In fact, my wife was crying laughing at her character's ridiculous-looking face while she beat the crap out of me. It was hilarious. So yeah, the multiplayer is amusing, and you'll probably have some fun with it, as long as you and your friends don't take it too seriously. Boxing Champs has the skeleton of an excellent arcade game, but it's missing a whole lot of meat and skin. Okay, that's kinda gross. What I'm saying is that if Raz Games could spend a little bit more time fleshing out features here and there, tinkering with the art style to have more of an identity, and tweak the sound design to give punches more impact, this could be a hell of a game. But as of right now, it certainly isn't. Based off of my first impression of Boxing Champs from its Nintendo eShop page, I would have guessed that it was way worse than it actually turned out to be. It took roughly 3 hours to tear through everything that it had to offer, and even if it wasn't great, I did have fun with it. And I guess that counts for something, right? Boxing Champs gets a 2 out of 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Knockout!